Hi, welcome to IT368C. This is RPA module, and welcome to this module. We'll be doing a e-lecture on an introduction to RPA. Okay, so the learning objectives for today are to understand what RPA is, the future of work with RPA, the RPA implementation benefits, and things about robots. So, how do you understand automation in terms of RPA? Now, the robot in RPA are not actual physical robots. They are mainly robots that does, and they replace a human clicking the screen, clicking the mouse, typing into websites, and doing tasks that are repeatable. So an example would be, let's say I'm doing a automation of searching for movies using a robot. Over here, you can see you can open a website, search for a movie, finding the results, saving the results, and repeat with other websites. Finally, sending a collated message via email. This is a good example of automation where the robot will do electronic task. So this is an introduction to RPA. As you see here, the idea of RPA is not to replace, to take away some of these repeatable tasks, such as counting, replying standard emails, so on and so forth. Then freeing the people from administrative work, etc., repeatable tasks. And then additions, you can see all these people flying up in the air. The idea is to free people from these manual tasks that is not filling. Okay, and by reducing all these manual tasks, permitting it, they are free to make other kind of decisions that requires human inputs. So, what are some characteristics of RPA? Firstly, RPA mimics human action not as a physical robot, but as a digital worker that actually go to websites, etc. to repeat tasks. Now, it works seamlessly with existing systems because it only works on interface. It reads and processes data in structured form. It's easy to implement and powerful to scale, and it works without mistakes. And so these are some of the characteristics of RPA. Now, a robotic process automation is about automating human digital interactions, such as clicking, typing, going across different computers, reading from computer screens, so on and so forth. And a lot of the tasks are repeatable tasks. So, however, RPA is not, number one, a humanoid robot. Like I mentioned, there's no arm and legs, there's no mechanical parts to it. Secondly, it is not a human replacement. There's a lot of decisions that still requires a human intervention, a human touch in order to work. And definitely, it is not just another cost-saving play. It's not for companies to just save costs in their organization. So that's something important to understand. So, without further ado, I'm going to do a very quick demo of what RPA can do. Um, the example I'm going to give you is actually about assessment components. So just imagine you have many modules, and different kind of tests, exams, projects, submissions, assignments. And imagine there's so many students, so many different modules, as well as so many semesters. So what happens typically is that your lecturers have to upload all these components, assessment components, to the student management system, which can be quite difficult. Okay, there are so many different computations, different kind of tests, different percentages. So sometimes we might even make mistakes. So what we did was we did automated automation for assessment components using RPA. So I'm just going to show you the video. So typically, first, if you look at this, right, you'll notice on the left, the robot will be clicked, but the mouse is moved to the side. This is actually about clicking through a component, doing things, and module code, semester, and retrieves from different systems. The module, you can see, start type in the components for this one, and so forth. Now, this is for module, there's 40 modules, okay? And the robot is doing this for every single year, semester, and so forth. Okay, so doing for one part of the module, but if you're doing multiple modules, this is where a lot of time saving comes in. So that is a example of RPA. Okay, so I just want to ask you, are you excited? Because I feel that there's so many things to do with RPA that can be very powerful. So background, emails, doing workflows, approval process, so on and so forth. Okay, so the future of work with RPA would include, number one, you actually build robots that mimic human actions, and it can be done in a local environment. A lot of RPA you could be doing in this module would actually be drag and drop, and a lot of it would be just modeling business processes rather than having to type actual complicated codes. Secondly, RPA can make the individual more efficient. A robot can execute a task much faster than a human, and also if the data is correct and the workflow is done correctly, it is actually much more accurate than a human. A human can make mistakes, especially when it comes to tasks that they need to do like 100 times. And of course, become more productive, release their bandwidth so they can focus on other aspects of their work. And of course, boring, mundane, repeatable tasks we don't want the humans to do, we can get a robot to help us do it. So the advantages for businesses would be to increase productivity, of course, accuracy output because it's done by a robot, improve regulatory compliance, something like ISO have certain audit standards and robot can adhere to those standards during the audits. So actually reduce cost of process execution. Now, interestingly, RPA is one of the fastest return on investment most of the time when it comes to software. A lot of times when you implement something simple in RPA, right, you can immediately see the benefits. Okay, it might not be adaptable as maybe the new agentic AI, etc. But in terms of ROI, return on investment, it is very fast. It reduces cost of repeatable process very quickly. And that's one advantages of RPA, which is what some businesses, they still prefer to use RPA even in the world of agentic AI and Gen AI, because the quick turnaround, the quick ROI you get from RPA is very, very fast and very, very powerful. Okay. Of course, it's very easy to scale. If you can do for one process, you can do for 1,000 processes. I mean, repeatable processes very quickly. So they are best suited for this. Okay, like I mentioned, I keep using the word repeatable. Okay, repetitive, and of course, you have rule-based. So there's if and else. So if this happens, then you do that. If that happens, you do this. And finally, you have structured processes that are well-defined and very structured. This means that it might not be as adaptable as something like a Gen AI or Agentic AI, but we are getting there. RPA is getting towards able to generate their own rule-based processes. But right now, repetitive processes is where it's at, and that is why we need structured processes when it comes to RPA. So, what are some of the use cases? Payroll. These are simple stuff where you do HR payroll, updating of client information, accounting, invoicing, sales order, and compliance reporting. So these are some of the things. And what are robots? So we talk about RPA in general, but in specifically, we never mention what robots are. Now, when you create a RPA process, it is a robot that executes the workflow. Okay, so later on when you do UiPath, you'll be actually doing robots, create robots. Okay, and robots perform these kind of calculations based on decisions. They can log into applications. They are the ones doing the complex data processing. They are the ones that execute your steps, and that's extremely important to understand. Okay, so when I say run your robot, that is the RPA program that's going to be running your processes. Now, what are the type of robots? So basically, there are two types. This is important because probably you need to know this. Number one, there's attended robots. Now, attended robots collaborate with a human worker. This means that when a robot is run, a human worker can be there. This is usually done when you need things like log in, you need certain inputs from the user, from the worker. So the worker will run the process and stay there and see the process run finish. And in between, they may need to enter certain things like password or maybe some tokens. Now, for unattended robots, these are robots that they run alone. Usually, you can use a virtual machine to run it at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. in the evening, in the night time, and it will run on its own. And it is standalone robots, so it can run on its own. You don't need a person there to look at it run. All right, so just to check your knowledge, first, what is RPA? Is robotic process automation. And what are the benefits of RPA? Okay, how many types of robot are there? 2 types, 3 types, 4 types, 5 types. There's actually just 2 types. Okay, which of the following is a good candidate for RPA? Actually, all the above are good for RPA. Now, which processes are best suited for RPA? All of the above as well. It's repetitive, it's rule-based, and it's structured. And finally, we have discussed all these things today. All right. I'm sure you would understand RPA better when we do our practical lesson, and we'll be going through this week a lot of things on variables, rule-based processes, so on and so forth, and you'll be creating your first RPA robot. I look forward to meeting you there. Thank you.